Hi, this is Masa, and I'm here for another episode of Masa Makes. Today I'm going to make chicken Soboro Donburi, which is ground chicken flavored with soy sauce, mirin, ginger, and sugar, and a scrambled egg that's scrambled very finely, and also put next to it with some peas. And I will show you both how I cook everything and how I assemble it. So here we go. So first, I have 2 pounds of ground chicken, 3/4 of a cup of mirin, which I'm going to put in this pan, which is cold. Also have 3/4 of a cup of soy sauce. I'm going to put these in the sink real quick. And I have 1/2 cup of sugar, also going in. And I'm going to put in 4 teaspoons of ginger. Now, I love this frozen ginger. It's from a company called, I think it's pronounced Dorat. They have ginger, they have garlic, they have a number of frozen seasonings, and each of these is 1 teaspoon. So if you need 4 teaspoons, you just push in 4 cubes, close up the package, shove it back in the freezer. So this gets cooked over low heat. And you'll see I'm going to use my chopsticks to kind of mix this around a little bit and get things melted and incorporated. And I'm also going to then put the ground chicken in while the temperature's low. And you'll see how I do that, and stir with the chopsticks, which leads to the chicken breaking into very, very fine pieces. So it ends up very, very small rather than having big, large chunks like you might in sort of like a homemade pasta sauce or something to that effect. Anyways, I'm just going to stir this around a little bit. Adjust the temperature just a little. Then I'm going to take the ground chicken and just dump all of that in with its juice. Put the bowl over here. And then you'll see I'm just going to start to stir it already and break it apart. And you'll see it's already starting to break into very fine pieces, basically the size of whatever grind the chicken is ground in. So I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit. I'm going to just keep stirring this, breaking it up. And then the nice thing about this dish is it doesn't take a lot of work, and a lot of this can just be left on low temperature to sort of simmer while you cook the next stage of the dish. So you can see the chicken's already breaking up into fine pieces. If you have some ones, you can either break them with your chopsticks this way, or then sometimes if I have something that's a little more unruly, I'll use my chopsticks this way as well. And then just keep stirring it. So you'll see we have some nice finely broken up chicken now from the ground chicken that we had earlier. So now this is just going to be left to simmer on its own. Got one piece there that's a little larger. So I'm going to leave this to simmer for a little bit on its own, come up to temperature, and I'm going to wash these chopsticks so that I can use them again. Because I'm going to use them now to scramble some eggs. And the egg scrambling process for this is, again, a low heat process. So you take the eggs and you're going to scramble them very low heat just as they start to set at the bottom of the pan. And then they also go into very fine bits, and you end up with a dish with a lot of things that are very finely ground and about the same size on top of rice. So we'll put those there. Give my hands a quick wash. And we will now get to the eggs. Need a fork. So for my eggs, I have a dozen eggs here. I use 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of mirin, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I made the mistake of doing 1.5 tablespoons of salt one time, and that did not come out well. So 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and then just gonna mix these eggs with a fork until they're all mixed together and all the sugar, mirin, and salt are all incorporated into them. And you can hear the chicken starting to simmer and coming up to a boil. So in a bit, I'm going to turn that temperature down, and I'm actually going to swap these two pans here. I'm also going to start some water because we're going to cook some frozen peas in a little bit. Let me get a little cooking oil for my pan. I'm gonna put this burner on low. I'm going to slide this one over. So now I can put the lid onto this and come back to it later. So with the eggs, like I said, they're over low heat right now. I'm going to put a little oil in the pan as well, and then I will be dropping the eggs in. And like I said, I'm going to scramble them very, very slowly. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for that pan to come up to temperature a little bit, I'm going to get some peas out of the freezer and put them in a bowl so I have them ready to drop when it's time to, when that water in the back pan boils. So I just use regular store-bought frozen peas, nothing special. Some people in our family like them better than others, so it doesn't necessarily take that many of them either. So pan should be up to temperature. I'm going to drop a little oil in here. I would guess that's about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of oil, probably 1.5 tablespoons. And I'm just going to pour the eggs right into the middle of that pool of oil. So now what happens is I leave the temperature fairly low and I just start to scramble these eggs. And you'll see they are just starting to set on the bottom. And I'm going to scramble them, like I said, at really low temperature. And it takes a little while, but what you get is a really, really finely scrambled egg that makes a great accompaniment. I like hashi also, or chopsticks, these big long cooking ones, because they also have very small points, and so I feel like they scramble a little more finely than if I were to use a wood spoon or some other, or a spatula or something larger. So this is also, just in case anybody's wondering, it's a 12-inch frying pan, so it's pretty large, but I wanted a large surface because I'm going to be cooking, this is a dozen eggs. So I wanted to be able to cook as much of it as I could, as quickly as I could. But like I said, this is a process you don't want to hurry, because if you hurry it, you will end up with larger pieces of egg than if you take your time and actually scramble it slowly and do over a lower temperature. So the other thing that'll happen is when I put this together, you'll see that I like to organize it into sort of almost 3 rows. So there'll be A row on one side of the bowl, that's the ground chicken, a row on the other side of the bowl, that is the scrambled eggs, and then a row in the middle, that is the peas, and then you take a little bit of that shredded ginger and drop it on top as a little decoration, and it works out for a fairly nice presentation as well. So you can not only have something that's delicious, but something that also looks good. This is one of those dishes that has turned out to be a favorite of just about everyone in my family. I don't remember where I originally saw the first recipe. I want to say it was an about.com recipe from a long time ago. But then when I went to go find it again, I couldn't find it on their site, and it was somewhere, and I found it somewhere else from the same author. But it seems to have moved around a couple of times. But where I originally ran into this dish, which is funny, is it wasn't in Japan with my family. It was when I was an undergrad at Cal Berkeley. There was a place that's a restaurant and also had a little food stand right at the edge of campus that they brought out for lunch, and they would sell Soboro Donburi as like a little bento you could get for lunch. And it was, one, really inexpensive, I believe, for a pretty good size one. It was like $2.95 back in the 90s, and it was also delicious, and I really loved it. And it was a dish that once I had a little more time on my hands, I took some time to learn how to make, realized it was super simple, and have just loved it ever since. And now it's at least my older son Jack's favorite. My wife loves it, my in-laws love it, my parents love it. It's one of those things when I make it, people we actually invite people over because we know we'll have some interest. And this time I'm actually making enough so that we can have some tomorrow for lunch as well. We'll just need to cook a fresh pot of rice. But you can see these eggs are also breaking down quite a bit. They're getting very finely scrambled. And then what I'll end up doing is just turning off the temperature and letting the residual pan heat keep them warm while I do the rest of this. So these eggs are just about done. Just trying to get rid of that last little bit of wet area along the edges. And while they're doing that, I'm going to drop a little salt in this pan. I'm going to put these peas in here to sorry, I lost a couple here that stuck to the sides. So these eggs are pretty much done. Like I said, very scrambled into very fine bits. I'm just gonna let them hang out here. I'm gonna turn off the heat, let them hang out. I'm gonna quickly wash off these chopsticks again so I can stir the chicken. And turn up the temperature because the chicken's cooking a little slowly. So you'll see the chicken's still here cooking. You just turn up the temp a little bit now. Stir this. You can see it's cooking through. And by having it in little bits and cooking it slowly, all the flavor from the sauce, which is the ginger, the soy sauce, the mirin, and the sugar, can all soak into this chicken really nicely. So this chicken's just about done. We'll leave it to simmer a little bit. I'll drop the peas and then I'll show you how I'm gonna bring all of this together and to assemble it into a nice bowl. I don't need these anymore. I'm going to briefly try one of these peas. I think they should be done. They're all floating. They look bright green. Just make sure. peas are ready. So I'm gonna go dump these out really quickly. Like I said, that's another one of these tricks where you don't want to try this if your hands are very heat sensitive, because it will definitely burn your hands when the steam comes up. So I'm gonna just cool off these peas a little bit, help set their color. We'll leave them right here on the edge of the strainer. And our chicken is done. Eggs are done. So I'm gonna get a bowl and I'll show you how I assemble all of this. So, have our steamed rice. I always like to fluff the rice a little bit first before putting it in a bowl. So, put the rice in here first. Get it so it's fairly flat. And then you're just going to go step by step and assemble everything. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a big scoop of the chicken. You can see is nice, ground into small bits. You're going to want to drain it, so push it against the side of the pot and drain it. And then I put it along one side of the bowl. Then, like I mentioned, I like to put a scoop of peas down the center as well. Kind of create a little colorful dividing line. And then in my family, everybody's favorite part of this is the eggs. And I am missing the spoon I normally like to use, so I will use a wooden spoon. So, these eggs, you might need to just break them up a little bit again. But you can see they're still in the fine pieces. So with the eggs, you just push the eggs onto the other side of the pan, or I'm sorry, the other side of the bowl. So you've got a nice little bowl there with the chicken, with the peas, and with the eggs, and then you just take a little bit of shredded ginger. And put it in the middle. So now you have Soboro Donburi. It's, like I said, ground chicken with scrambled egg, peas, and ginger in a rice bowl. And we actually found the best way we like to eat it is to take this whole bowl and just stir it up and mix it all together, and then eat it just as sort of one big mishmash, rather than trying to eat each separate piece or trying to like gather little bits of everything on a spoon or whatever while you eat it. So we just put a spoon in, stir it all around, and eat it. All right, I hope you try this recipe, and I hope you enjoy it. This has been another episode of Masa Makes Soboro Donburi. Thanks.